Hey folks, this is Kalani. I thought most of the largest class changes would have already made their way onto the 10.2 PTR, but I was wrong. We have some massive class changes coming to talk about this week, including a new raid buff for hunters, which is very exciting. This is also one of the best times to gear up on live servers. If you want to get ready for Season 3, you can very easily get multiple pieces of free heroic raid gear over the next few weeks, so we'll also go over that to make sure you can get as much gear as you can before Season 3 rolls around. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. Let's start with the class changes because we have some very interesting updates this week. The Death Knights have just a couple of quick changes for Frost and their new set bonuses coming in Season 3. The 2 set was buffed up to last for 12 seconds, and you also get the damage buff from self bounces. Then there were also some bug fixes for both the 2 set and the 4 set. The Demon Hunter rework continues to take shape. Spectral Sight is down to 30 seconds baseline, and haste will affect its global cooldown. Demonic's duration was reduced slightly. Several talents were moved to the class tree. The Hunt's damage was buffed up by quite a bit, both for the initial damage and the damage over time. Sigil of Flame will now be a baseline ability, and its initial damage was increased by 200%. There are some new talents. Several talents will now just be 1 rank, and then there are also some balance adjustments in there as well. For Havoc specifically, a few recent changes have been reverted. There are a lot of new talents to look at. Eye-beam damage has been increased by 15%, Fell Barrage damage is up 100%, and then there are some talent changes coming through as well. We're seeing more changes for Vengeance this week with new talents coming in. The talent tree is shifting around, a lot of passives will only be 1 rank instead of multiple, and Soul Carver was buffed up to generate 3 soul fragments up from 2. Moving on to the Druids, for balance it looks like the Orbital Strike change has been reverted, their mastery has been updated, some talents have shifted around, and Wild Mushroom's damage was increased by 10%. For Feral, Rampant Ferocity damage is up 10%, Feral Druids can now cast Innovate in cat form, it's about time, Relentless Predator was nerfed down to 10%, and Apex Predator's chance to activate against a single target was reduced down to 7.2%, and then Restoration has a few quick changes to mana costs, as well as a bug fix for Grove Guardians. EVOKERs have some amazing quality of life updates for their augmentation spec. Prescience buffs will now clear on Raid Encounter and Mythic Plus start, which means you can no longer prepare your Prescience targets, which should hopefully avoid most of these crazy 1-minute pull timer scenarios that were cropping up over the last few weeks, especially with the new set bonus in play. To offset that lack of ramp time, Prescience will now have 2 charges, which is an amazing change in my opinion. Not only does this almost entirely offset the buff clearing on raid start, but it gives you a lot of extra options when it comes to managing Prescience stacks. I think this one change will really shake up the augmentation playstyle, and I'm excited to see how it feels when the patch goes live. Devastation has some quick buffs to Inherent Resistance and Attune to the Dream talents, which should give them a bit more survivability going forward, and then for Preservation we're going to see a change to Fluttering Seedlings. They no longer proc from Echoed Emerald Blossoms, but their healing has been increased by 20%. Moving on, Hunters have a huge change this week. They're finally getting a party-wide or raid-wide buff, and it might not be quite what you think. Instead of getting a stat buff like Priests or Druids, they're going to get a debuff like Demon Hunters or Monks. So Hunter's Mark will now increase all damage taken by 5% while the target is above 80% health. That's a big front-loaded damage increase, which should be very valuable in raid especially. In addition to those changes, Hunter's Mark will have a cooldown when used in combat, and it will still be on the global cooldown. Now in standard scenarios with just 1 target, tank and spank, nothing super special happening, this would just end up being about a 1% damage increase for your raid. It is all front loaded though, so any fight where the first phases are more important will be better, and the buff will pretty much be useless right now for anything past that point. Interestingly, if a fight has any adds that spawn with high amounts of health or stay at high health for a long time, Hunter's Mark could help kill those adds a bit faster, so it will depend on the raid encounter, but Hunter's Mark is a great way to give hunters some extra utility. And then Survival just has some quick bug fixes and changes for their 2 set and 4 set bonuses coming in Season 3. Monks have quite a few changes for Mistweaver again. There are some bug fixes and changes for the new 4-set bonus. Healing Elixir was buffed up to heal more health and trigger earlier. Expel Harm had its mana cost reduced and its healing was increased by 550%, which is kind of insane. It also deals more damage for the healing done and its range was also increased. Strength of Spirit and Profound Rebuttal were both nerfed though, but the huge buff to Expel Harm should offset most of those nerfs. Unison was nerfed down to 75% of healing done, Enveloping Breath healing was reduced by 20%, and Rising Sun Kick damage was buffed up by 20%, so a lot of give and take for Mistweavers this week. Windwalkers also have a few changes to their 2-set and 4-set bonuses, as well as quite a few bug fixes. For Holy Paladins, Sanctified Plates is now 40% less effective, Blessing of Winter restores less mana, their 2-set was nerfed by 25%, and their 4-set now also increases haste by 25% for 5 seconds. For Retribution, Blade of Vengeance and how it interacts with Blade of Justice has changed. Moving on to the Priests, Discipline continues to see changes. Rhapsody was nerfed down to 10% per stack from 20% per stack, Harsh Discipline has been redesigned, and then Ultimate Penitence was buffed up again, both for the damage portion and the healing portion. Holy Priests saw a quick fix for their 4-set bonus, and then for Shadow, Inescapable Torment now triggers at 35% effectiveness from the additional Shadower deaths caused by the new set bonuses, and the 2-set bonus was nerfed to 35% effectiveness down from 50%. For the Rogues, all 3 specs have a handful of changes this week. For Assassination, Exsanguinate active has been removed, and the passive was also changed. Sudden Demise's bleed damage was reduced down to 150% of remaining health, down from 200%, and Indiscriminate Carnage now prioritizes targets without Rupture or Garrote. For Outlaw, there's a new talent to increase the range of Between the Eyes and Pistol Shot, and you'll get a nice damage reduction buff, and then Killing Spree had a change to how quickly the attacks will happen, and then for Subtlety, there are a few new talents, a few changes for Shadow Technique and Shadowcraft, and then Ephemeral Bonds bonus healing was reduced down to 8%. The Shamans are up next. For Elemental, Splintered Elements was changed to provide more upfront haste and less haste per target hit. Further Beyond was changed to limit how far it can be extended. Primordial Wave was changed to be an offensive spell only, and the 4-set has also been redesigned. Enhancement also has quite a lot of changes. A lot of talents have shifted around. Elemental Assault lets you generate Maelstrom weapon charges from more abilities. Primordial Wave was changed to be only an offensive spell for Enhancement 2. They have the same change for Splintered Elements, a new talent called Tempest Strikes, and some bug fixes for their new tier set bonuses. And then Resto has just the same quick change for Primordial Wave, but this will only be a healing spell for Resto Shamans going forward, so Primordial Wave will be restricted based on your spec by the looks of things. For the Warlocks, Affliction has a quick change to Umbra Fire Kindling, that's going to last 20 seconds up from 12. The rest of the changes are for Demonology, lots of new talents coming in, Soul Strike has been redesigned, several talents will only be 1 rank, the Pit Lord's Fell Seeker damage was increased by 40%, and the 2-set and 4-set bonuses have also been redesigned again. And then we round out things with the Warriors. There's just one change for Fury. Reckless Abandon's Bloodbath now shares its cooldown with Bloodthirst. This was apparently an oversight which allowed certain builds to excel, so that's being reined back in. That's all of the class changes we have for this week. Remember, these are also for the 10.2 PTR, so we're not going to see them on the live servers just yet, but the dev team are definitely starting to shake things up. I think Season 3 is going to be very interesting if this pacing of large changes continues. Now moving on, thanks to the Turbulent Timeways event, right now is one of the best times to gear up if you're wanting to get ready for the start of Season 3. There are 2 major gearing up opportunities that you don't want to miss because you can walk away with free heroic raid gear. The big ticket items are going to come from the weekly timewalking event. This is super simple. Pick up the quest in Valdrakken, run 5 timewalking dungeons, or kill 5 timewalking raid bosses, hand the quest back in, and you'll get a free piece of heroic raid gear. This reward is usually only normal raid gear, but it has been bumped up to heroic for the current event. The event itself also gives us back-to-back timewalking for 5 weeks, which means we'll have 5 weeks where we can complete this weekly quest, so if you get this quest done every week that it's available, you'll have 5 pieces of heroic raid loot by the end of the event. Heroic raid loot starts at item level 428, but it can go all the way up to item level 444 for some of the special items available in the raid, so you have 5 chances to not only get some massive gear upgrades, but also to get some potentially very powerful pieces of gear. This event is worth taking part in for almost everyone who doesn't already run high level Mythic Plus keys or do the raid on Mythic. So if you're wanting to get some quick and easy gear to bump up your item level before we head into patch 10.2 in Season 3, be sure to get your timewalking quests done. Something you might not be aware of is that you can actually pretty easily upgrade this gear as well, even if you don't take part in high-end group content. To upgrade most heroic level gear, you're going to need worm crests. There are 2 sources of worm crests that everyone has access to. The first one is the Dream Surge events. If you complete the weekly quest over here to obtain your Dream Surge Chrysalis, you can trade that in for a worm crest at one of the Dream Surge vendors, so you can get 1 worm crest per week from the Dream Surge events. And then you can also get 3 worm crests per week from the weekly vault. The easiest way to fill this up is to kill 7 bosses in the Looking for Raid version of Avarice. When the weekly reset rolls around, you can pick up 6 tokens of merit from the weekly vault, and then trade those in for 3 worm crests at the token vendor right next to the vault. So if you do both of these things, you can get 4 worm crests per week, which will let you bump up the item level of all that free heroic gear you get from the timewalking dungeons, or even from the timewalking raid. Now, if you're wanting to spend a bit more time to get some more easy gear, you can also hop into the timewalking raids. Only certain timewalking events have a raid you can do. We're starting with Cataclysm, which gives us timewalking Firelands. I believe next week is going to be Burning Crusade, which has the Black Temple raid available in timewalking, and then after that we'll be waiting until the last week for Wrath of the Lich King, which has Ulduar available. Timewalking raids are super easy. Their scaling seems to be much lower when compared to previous expansions. We blasted through pretty much every boss in the Firelands raid this week without anybody really knowing what they were doing. Your gear and item level also gets scaled, so this isn't a case of needing to outgear the content to zoom through it. You can sign up with a fresh level 70 character and it won't really make much of a difference, so it's a super accessible option. Each boss will drop several pieces of item level 415 gear, so this is a super easy way to fill out the rest of your gear slots with 415 gear. All of the timewalking raid gear is also upgradable, and because it drops at item level 415, it starts on the champion track, meaning you can also upgrade all of this stuff to item level 437. If you full clear the raid, you should also get a quest item to turn in, which rewards you with a piece of item level 428 gear, so that's another free piece of heroic raid gear right there. So if you keep an eye out for when we have a timewalking raid available, again that's going to be during Cataclysm, the Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King timewalking, you can very quickly gear up your characters just using the timewalking events. When you couple the easy timewalking raid gear with the free heroic raid loot from completing the weekly quests, we are basically swimming in free high item level gear right now, so it's perfect for gearing up all of your ults. The only real downside about timewalking raids is that you have to join a group for it in the group finder. You can't queue into it by yourself. So you want to go into the Legacy Raid section and just search for the raid that is currently available in timewalking. So if you want to do Firelands, search Firelands, and thankfully with the content being so easy and the scaling item level system, most groups accept almost anyone because they just want to get in as quickly as possible and get some loot. So sign up for any group you see doing the timewalking raid. You'll get accepted in no time. The Turbulent Time Waste event isn't just great for gearing up though, it's also perfect for leveling up any of your characters that you still haven't gotten to max level. With 5 weeks of back-to-back timewalking, we'll have constant access to timewalking dungeons, which have historically been one of the better and faster ways to level up, but this event takes it one step further, giving you access to a large experience bonus almost for free. Whenever you complete a timewalking dungeon during the event, you'll get a stack of Knowledge of Time Waste buff. This buff increases your experience gains by 5% and it can stack up to 4 times. If you get to 4 stacks, the buff changes to Mastery of Time Waste, which increases experience gains by 30%, so you get an extra 10% when you get that 4th stack. It's basically free experience at that point, especially if you are running timewalking dungeons to level up. It's also much easier to get the max experience bonus when compared to the previous data mine versions of this event. You only need to run 4 dungeons to max it out instead of 10, so they made it quite a bit easier, which is definitely nice. You can either just keep running timewalking dungeons with that big bonus, or you can change things up and still benefit from the experience buff. Remember that there are also experience buffs in the Dream Surge event and the zone where that is active, so you can run time walking dungeons to get the 30% buff and then do some quick quest lines in the Dream Surge zone to get massive amounts of experience. I'll be using this event to get all of my alts maxed out because we probably won't see another huge experience buff until the anniversary event at least, or until the Turbulent Timeways event potentially comes around again in 10.2.7, if they keep going with the current patch schedule anyway. Now if you're interested in achievements or mounts, there's also an achievement tied to the Mastery of Timeways buff. If you can get the buff in 5 different weeks, you'll earn the Master of the Turbulent Timeways achievement, which rewards you with the Sandy Shale Wing mount. So if you want an extra mount to add to your collection, just run 4 time walking dungeons in 5 different weeks and you'll get this achievement easy peasy. But that's all the updates we have for the PTR this week, as well as how you can take advantage of the big time walking event to easily gear up and level up. What do you think of Hunters finally getting a raid buff, and do you think it's enough to give them a guaranteed spot in raids? How do you feel about the time walking event and its super easy gear and leveling up options? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you'd like to add your name to the end of every video with a special shout out at the start of the next video, you can find links in the description over to Patreon or click the join button just below this video. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.